There are few steam railways left in Britain, and there's only one which carries passengers to the summit of a mountain. This railway, a rack and pinion railway, carries thousands of passengers every year from Llanberis in northwest Wales to the summit of Snowdon. I'm standing 1,085 meters above sea level at the very summit of Snowdon, the mountains the Welsh call I'r Wyddfa, the highest mountain in Wales and the highest point in the Snowdonian National Park. The Snowdonia National Park is situated in northwest Wales. Our study will begin at the summit of Snowdon and will include the two passes east and west of Glyder, Llanberis and Nant Francon. We shall also move southwards as far as Trawsfynydd, where the nuclear power station is situated. From our viewpoint on the summit of Snowdon, we see that there are ridges radiating outwards. Looking southwards, we start with Llued, extending from the saddle of Bwlch in the foreground. Sweeping westwards, we see Cwm Llan, one of 5 great hollows sunk into the mountain mass. The next ridge is Bwlch Mine, which divides Cwm Llan from Cwm Clogwyn. In the distance, seen over the summit station, we can see Llyn Llewellyn. Behind it is Mynydd Mawr, northwest of the summit, the remnant of an ancient volcano. Above those small lakes, in shade in the foreground, rises the ridge of Clogwyn Dir Adi. Cwm Brynwog is beyond this ridge. We're now turning eastwards to Crib Goch in the foreground there, a knife-edged ridge. Beyond it, you can see the summits of the Glyder, which is divided from Snowdon by the Llanberis Pass. Crib Goch divides Cwm Glas from Cwm Dili, the hollow which holds the lakes named Glaslyn and Llyn Llyda. And finally, we return to Llued. This ridge, made up of ancient Ordovician rock, has hollows on both sides. At one time, it would have looked like this. At the beginning of the Ice Age, snow accumulated, and under the pressure of more and more snow, the lower layers turned to ice, which was eventually squeezed out to spill down the mountainside as a glacier. When the ice melted, hollows, known in Wales as cwms, were left sometimes with small lakes on the cwm floors. The back walls are steep, and when two of these stand against each other back to back, a knife-edged ridge, known to geographers as an arête, divides them. The glacial tongues spilling out of these upland cwms combine to form valley glaciers, enormous rivers of slow-moving ice, which poured downhill following the lines of existing streams and rivers. The effects of this moving ice can be seen clearly today, not only on the slopes of Snowdon itself, but also in the main valleys leading from the mountains. From the Snowdon Railway, we can see the upper slopes of the Llanberis Pass. From rounded summits, the slopes fall almost vertically as bare crags or slabs to the valley floor. From the top of the pass, that's to say the southeastern end, you can see that it would be a straight pass, almost a straight line, if it weren't for that huge spur of rock in the middle distance. Now, that rock has made the valley bend round, and that rock is there doing that because it was so hard it just couldn't be ground away by the glaciers of the Ice Age. But if you come down the valley, following it down, that's to say, going in a northwesterly direction towards Llanberis, and you stand below the back face of the Glyders, as I'm standing now, you can see that the northwestern part of the valley, from here onwards, is just about as straight as you could wish. And if you look for the right things, you can see that it's a classic example of a glaciated valley. From the wide, flat valley floor, the sides rise steeply, and above a zone of scree, we see the vertical slabs on the eastern side of the valley. Because the slabs are so near the road, because the road means that climbers can just pitch a tent by the roadside and be up on those crags in a few minutes, it's always been a favourite climbing ground. Dwarfed by the size of the slabs are several climbing teams. At busy weekends, and especially during school holiday periods, the mountain rescue services are especially alert.
Neville Link, this is Oggy Pierce. Roger, can you pass it after I finish passing it to Victor Link? Out to you. Victor Link.
The volunteers and professionals work as a well-practiced team linked by radio.
Someone answering the description was seen at the refuge hut and was making for Ever. Is that correct?
Victor Link, this is Oggy Pierce. Affirmative.
Helicopters and other equipment are used to speed the rescue of climbers and walkers in difficulty. Accidents are becoming increasingly common. Indeed, controversy has arisen over the degree of freedom to which climbers have been accustomed in these mountains. Requests have been made that climbers should inform the national park authorities not only of their presence in the mountains, but also of their exact climbing and walking routes, since this information would enable the mountain rescue services to operate even more quickly and effectively should the need arise.
Can they send Pritchard to the refuge?
This team is working in the Nant-Francon Pass, which runs almost parallel to the Llanberis Pass. The Nant-Francon Pass is a deep trench with features similar to those seen earlier in the Llanberis Pass. Their similarity is due to their glacial origins. In this diagram, we can see how glaciers move slowly down tributary valleys and eventually join together to form a massive glacier filling a valley. Although they might have travelled only a few meters every year, the strength and weight of this great mass of ice acted as a huge bulldozer, removing all obstacles in its way. V-shaped valleys before glaciation became U-shaped. The overall effect of this movement was the deepening and straightening of the valleys which they occupied. The lower reaches of tributary streams were sliced away, so that after glaciation, new tributary streams fell down the steep slopes of the main valleys as waterfalls. The tributary valleys now appear to hang between truncated spurs above the main valley. The valley floor reveals further evidence of glaciation. The exposed rocks have been smoothed and scratched by the moving ice and by rocks embedded in the ice. The direction of the scratches indicates the direction in which the ice travelled. Where hollows were excavated in the valley floors, lakes are sometimes located. Here we see Llyn Ogwen in the centre of the Nant-Francon Pass, dammed behind a rock barrier. Westward, over the Glyder, you can see examples of other valley lakes. This view begins at the head of the Llanberis Pass, seen from above the Snowdon Railway. The valley deepens and widens as we follow it northwards. Near to the village of Llanberis, we can see two narrow lakes, Llyn Padarn and Llyn Peris, which are divided by a narrow neck of land. These lakes, before landslides divided them, were originally a single narrow lake formed in a glacial hollow. From the eastern side of the lakes rise almost vertically the galleries which are the ugly reminders that this was once the largest slate quarry in the world. You'd have to go a long way to find a bigger man-made hole in the ground than that one across the water. It is the Llanberis slate quarry, one of the famous North Wales slate quarries. Welsh slate was always said to be the best roofing material in the world. It certainly kept the rain out of most British houses, and it was exported all over the world, even as far away as Australia. But of course, as other materials came in, slate declined in popularity, and to a very large extent the economy of this area no longer depends on it. But wherever you look, everything is slate. The house a man might be born in is built of slate. The tombstone that marks the fact that he's died is made of slate too. Before the quarries were closed in 1969, 300 men were employed at the Dinorwic quarry at Llanberis. These scenes were once typical of the North Wales slate industry. Large quantities of slate were blasted from the exposed faces and transported for preparation. At the beginning of this century, when 3,000 men were employed at the Dinorwic quarry alone, virtually all the work of extracting the slate was done laboriously by much simpler methods. The men, working from cradles, laid charges to loosen the slate, which then had to be removed manually. In addition to the quarrying method, slate was also obtained by mining. Here we see the Llechwedd mine at Blaenau Festiniog. The trucks which once carried the miners now carry interested visitors to the old mines. Well, what is slate? How was it formed? It comes from the Cambrian rocks, seen here in this diagram as a layer beneath younger rocks. Originally, the Cambrian rocks had shale characteristics, but the shale was changed to slate. In the diagram, you can see a dark block representing a cube of shale. In this shale are quartz grains, and the cube is split by diagonal bedding planes. Increasing pressures from surrounding rocks, shown by the arrowheads, force the grains into rows divided by new lines called cleavage lines. These cleavage lines give slate the appearance of numerous wafers pressed firmly together. The cleavage lines can be split by the careful use of special tools. Demonstrations of splitting can be seen at Llechwedd. Judging how to split the cleavage demands a trained craftsman's eye. Slate is a tough, long-lasting material. Near the Dinorwic quarry at Llanberis are the remains of Dolbadarn Castle, built of local slate and gritstone in the 13th century. Much of the round tower is still standing. The closure of the slate quarries has created unemployment in the local communities and left great scars on the mountainside. the Central Electricity Generating Board has received permission to site a pumped storage electric power station here at Llanberis. Water will be stored in a lake high above the quarries and will be fed underground to a power station built in a massive cavern excavated in the mountain. Not surprisingly, this proposal has caused considerable discussion since the site of the power station is in the heart of the national park. It could well be argued that the landscape has already been brutally scarred by the slate quarrying, and by careful screening and landscape design, the lower Llanberis Valley might indeed be improved. Electricity production is not a new feature for the Snowdonia National Park. At Festiniog, south of Snowdon, there's another pumped storage scheme, while further south is the Trawsfynydd nuclear power station. This stands on the banks of Llyn Trawsfynydd, a reservoir made in the 1920s to provide water for the Maentwrog hydroelectric power station. The nuclear power station here was the first British nuclear power station to be located away from the coast. Reasons for its location here include the availability of water for cooling purposes and for conversion into steam, the flatness of the land, the underlying hard rocks suitable for foundations for the massive generating units, and the isolation from urban centres. The nuclear power station came into production in 1965. As in other British national parks, the planners in Snowdonia are faced with the problem of conserving the superb natural beauty. But at the same time, there is the pressing need to maintain the growth of the local economy. The more the national park becomes known, the more visitors it attracts. Up to 2,500 visitors go to the top of Snowdon each day in the main holiday season. But all this increasingly alters the ways of life in the region. Unemployment of local people has led to depopulation. Welsh people have left their homes, and these have often been taken over as second homes for visitors. To keep the local communities alive, work must be available, and yet workplaces may threaten the natural beauty. Undoubtedly, the economy of Snowdonia is heavily dependent on the tourist industry, but in the long run, this may prove to be more of a threat than a guarantee of life in the future.